Hi everyone, I'm Sandy and welcome back to my channel. Today I have kind of a fun video, a little bit of a different video for me. It is 10 books that are turning 100 years old in 2023. I got an email recently from Thrift Books about this topic and then went out and did a little bit more research and found one actually on Goodreads that it was very similar. I'll leave that linked in the description below for you if you want to go check out more books that are on that list. But all of these books are celebrating their 100th birthday, so I thought, why not bring them to everyone here on book two? There are a couple of books in here that I have read. One of my favorite authors is listed in this. And then there are a number of books I have never heard of, but will be reading at some point, and books that I have heard of, but I will also never be reading. So it's an interesting list. And I do have to give an honorable mention to book number 11. They're ranked in popularity based on the number of ratings, and it's not based on their overall star rating. It looks like the number of ratings, the number of people who have shelved it as a 1923 book. So kind of interesting criteria to come up with the number one. But number 11 is actually a series by P.G. Wodehouse, which is the Jeeves series. And the second book in the Jeeves series was published in 1923, The Inimitable Jeeves. I've only read one Jeeves book, and I read it way out of order. And honestly, it didn't make sense to me. So I really kind of want to go back and read more and read this Jeeves series in order to really have some appreciation for P.G. Wodehouse. But officially on the list, starting with number 10, is Kane by Jean Toomer. This book is on my 1001 book list, so I'm really excited to pick this one up. It says, a literary masterpiece of the Harlem Renaissance, Kane is a powerful work of innovative fiction evoking Black life in the South. The sketches, poems, and stories of Black rural and urban life that make up Kane are rich in imagery. Visions of smoke, sugarcane, dusk, and flame permeate the southern landscape. The northern world is pictured as harsher reality of asphalt streets. Impressionistic, sometimes surrealistic, the pieces are redolent of nature and Africa with sensuous appeal to eye and ear. I am very intrigued by this. I also don't think it's very long. So if I can make it into the 2023 list on its 100th birthday, I will try and do so. But Kane by Jean Toomer, I had never heard of it before really looking at this list. Even though it was on my 1001 book list, it wasn't one that had caught my eye yet. So book number 9 is called I and Thou by Martin Buber. I'm not sure if that's how you say his last name. And this particular book, I can tell you right away, is not one that I'm going to be reading. It's not on my 1001 book list, and it's a topic that I doubt that I will spend much time in. It is, and when I look at this, there's a lot. When I look at the main description of the book, it says major themes in the book is that human life finds its meaningfulness in relationships. All of our relationships, Buber contends, bring us ultimately in relation with God, who is the eternal thou. And he talks about I toward an it, or I toward a thou. Yeah, I'm never going to read this book, but that was number 9. Number 8 is a book called Zeno's Conscience by Italo Svevo. And this one is on the 1001 book list. So I'm very excited to pick this one up. I read this description a little bit earlier and was just like, okay, I have parts of this that I'm super excited for and parts of it that I'm like, maybe not. So long hailed as a seminal work of modernism in the tradition of Joyce and Kafka, Joyce, not my favorite, and now available in a new English translation, Italo Svevo's charming and splendidly idiosyncratic novel conducts readers deep into one hilariously hyperactive and endlessly self-deluded mind. Okay, and the mind in question belongs to one Zeno Corsini, a neurotic Italian businessman who is writing his confessions at the behest of his psychiatrist. I'm intrigued by this one. Again, it's one that hadn't quite caught my eye yet, but I'm intrigued now after reading that brief description. Yeah, again, another book I'd never heard of. Number 7 is a book called Reminiscences of a Stock Operator by Edwin Lefevre. This one appears to be more of a nonfiction book, and it says, first published in 1923, Reminiscences of a Stock Operator is the most widely read and highly recommended investment book ever. Generations of readers have found that it has more to teach them about markets and people than years of experience. This is a timeless tale that will enrich your life and your portfolio. Okay, interesting. It's not on my 1001 list though. So it's not a topic I'm super excited to read about. Number 6 was a huge surprise that this is now 100 years old, and it is The Ego and the Id by Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud being, probably the most well-known psychiatrist, one of the most well-known psychiatrists. The description of this book on Goodreads is remarkably short. It just says The Ego and the Id ranks high among the works of Freud's later years. The heart of his concern is the ego, which he sees battling with 3 forces: the id, the superego, and the outside world. It's a very famous Sigmund Freud. But yeah, that was number 6. I didn't realize it had been published 100 years ago, and that's not his first work. So number 5, again a surprise, is actually Bambi by Felix Salton. I did not know that Bambi, the Disney movie, was based off of a book. It says Bambi's life in the woods begins happily. There are forest animals to play with, like friend hare, the chattery squirrel, the noisy screech owl, and Bambi's twin cousins, Frail Gobo and beautiful Feline. But winter comes and Bambi learns that the woods hold danger and things he doesn't understand. The first snowfall makes food hard to find. Bambi's father, a handsome stag, roams the forest but leaves Bambi and his mother all alone. Then there is man. Dun, dun, dun! He comes to the forest with weapons that can wound an animal. He does terrible things to Gobo, to Bambi's mother, and even to Bambi, but he can't keep Bambi from growing into a handsome stag himself and becoming the prince of the forest. Wow, I'm tempted to pick that one up because I've obviously seen the movie, but 100 years old, that book. Wow, impressive. All right, number 4 is a book by one of my favorite authors, which is Agatha Christie, and it is actually The Murder on the Links, which is Hercule Poirot's number 2. Number 1 is one I have, which is this one, The Mysterious Affair at Styles. I believe this is the first Hercule Poirot novel. I don't own The Murder on the Links, but I have read numerous of Agatha Christie's books, and they never felt like they were dating back 100 years. So yeah, really interesting that Murder on the Links is now 100 years old, which means that other one is older than that. Woo! So if you're not familiar, Agatha Christie has a detective series with a detective whose name is Hercule Poirot, and he is fantastic as far as trying to figure out crimes, trying to figure out mysteries, murders. It is just a really fun series Agatha Christie writes. I don't know how many are in the Hercule Poirot series, but there are a lot of them. I'm not going to read the description for this one because it is so easy to spoil some of Agatha Christie's, but she was number 4. All right, number 3 is Emily of New Moon, which is by L.M. Montgomery. L.M. Montgomery wrote Anne of Green Gables, and so Emily, this is a side story with Emily. Emily Starr never knew what it was to be lonely until her beloved father died. Now Emily's an orphan, and her mother's snobbish relatives are taking her to live with them in New Moon Farm. She's sure she won't be happy. Emily deals with stiff, stern Aunt Elizabeth and her malicious classmates by holding her head high and using her quick wit. Things begin to change when she makes friends with Teddy, who does marvelous drawings, and with Perry, who sailed all over the world with his father, has never yet been to school, and above all with with ILSE, I think is how you say it. I don't know how you say it. A tomboy with a blazing temper. Amazingly, Emily finds New Moon beautiful and fascinating with new friends and adventures. Emily might someday think of herself as Emily of New Moon. I love Anne of Green Gables. It was such a surprise read. I really did enjoy it quite a bit when I read it, so I'm tempted to read this one, but it's not on my 1001 list. All right, number 2 is a book I have read, and I didn't like it. So the book is Whose Body by Dorothy L. Sayers. Dorothy L. Sayers, this is the first book in the Lord Peter Wimsey series. It didn't feel like it was 100 years old when I read it. Some things maybe, but not that dated. But if you're not familiar with Dorothy L. Sayers, she wrote a series with Lord Peter Wimsey, who is, a lord and is out investigating all different kinds of crimes. And so this is the first book in the series. I did read this one and I did not get along with it. It's not very long. It's about 100 pages. But the premise is the stark naked body was lying in the tub. Not unusual for a proper bath, but highly irregular for murder, especially with a pair of gold pince-nez deliberately perched before the sightless eyes. What's more, the face appeared to have been shaved after death. The police assumed that the victim was a prominent financier, but Lord Peter Wimsey, who dabbled in mystery detection as a hobby, knew better. In this, his first murder case, Lord Peter untangles the ghastly mystery of the corpse in the bath. The description sounds far better than it actually was. Yeah, not my favorite series. I've actually went on to read Murder Must Advertise as well, which I think was series part 7 or 8. I have one more, Nine Tailors. I can't remember the name of it now off the top of my head. But that is book number 2. And book number 1 is a book I have seen the cover of, but I've never read. It's not on my 1001 book list. And it is The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And so The Prophet is a collection of poetic essays that are philosophical, spiritual, and above all, inspirational. Gibran's musings are divided into 28 chapters covering sprawling topics as love, marriage, children, giving, eating and drinking, work, joy and sorrow, housing, clothes, buying and selling, crime and punishment, laws, freedom, reason and passion, pain, self-knowledge, teaching, friendship, talking, time, good and evil, prayer, pleasure, beauty, religion, and death. Wow, that's a lot. So I don't own that book. What I do own, though, is really interesting. I own this, The Treasured Writings of Khalil Gibran, author of The Prophet. The Prophet is not in this. This is actually my husband's book. One of his family members gave this to him as a gift. But look at this. I don't know if I'll ever read this one, but I do actually own some of his writing, which was a huge surprise. So that is it. What do you think of their list? Are you surprised that any of these are turning 100 years old this year? I was surprised. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these or if you had a favorite, especially if you've read the 2 that are on my 1001 book countdown, which were Zeno's Conscience and Kane. If you've read either one of those, I would love to hear your comments about those. And that's what I have for you. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, thanks. Bye.